It has been about 9 months since the M1 MacBook Air has been released, and during that time, it has not only proven to be the best Mac ever, but the best laptop ever, period. So, why is that? So, in the 9 months that we had from the debut of the M1 chip and the MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, and Mac Mini until now, a lot of things have changed. This is because of the history of the M1 MacBook Air. Once it came out, a lot of people thought that it was a Pro Lite. So it was kind of like a downgraded version to some of the M1 MacBook Pro. But once we got it in our hands, we were very wrong. Almost in every benchmark, the Pro had a 10 to 15% increase in speed, but in real-world performance, such as video rendering, exporting, and editing, there has been little to no difference. This is because the M1 chip has special encoders and decoders and special things that in its ARM silicon which makes it faster. And once something is fast enough, it really doesn't make a difference. The only time that you'll notice a speed difference between the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro is when you're rendering 4K videos and you're trying to export them. You'll notice a 1 to 3 second difference, which isn't a lot. For performance, the thermal throttling of the M1 chip is kind of overrated since it really doesn't thermal throttle that much. People realize now that the M1 chip is incredibly efficient, that there's no need for any type of fan. But even if you want that 10 to 15% of raw power back, you can actually get some, I think it's called heating pads or something. You can get one of those pads that you can stick on your MacBook, which makes it even faster than the M1 MacBook Pro in terms of raw power. And it only costs about $30 US and $39 USD for 2 strips of thermal pads, which will work on the MacBook Air. Link in description, and thanks for iFixit for bringing them up, I guess. And it's the tools that I use to install them, although I guess you could use your screwdriver that you have at home, although you need to check the type. The only really major downside that these thermal pads have is that it makes the heat go to the aluminum chassis of the M1 MacBook Air, making it hot, but it's not that hot, so for most people it won't really matter. And of course, compared to other laptops, the display is very nice. It's a very high quality display, and it's very high quality compared to other Windows machines such as the LG Gram, the XPS 15, and even Samsung's Book Pro 360. Also, of course, all the other stuff that the MacBook Air reigns in, such as the keyboard, which is far superior compared to any other keyboard in the market, the trackpad, which has a 3D touch technology, I think it's called, which makes it by far the best trackpad out there. The speakers are phenomenal for a laptop, and the webcam has the image processing of the M1 chip, making it look better compared to any other Windows laptop. I chose the M1 MacBook Air over many other products such as the XPS 15, the LG Gram, the 16-inch MacBook Pro, the 13-inch MacBook Pro, and the Mac Mini, iMac, and the iPad Pro because of, I think, 3 things. First of all, which obviously being very powerful, and it's plenty powerful for what I needed to do. That's why I never bothered picking up a MacBook Pro. Also, compared to the Pro, I kind of like the slanted keyboard. It makes it easier to type on. And during my testing, I found that I liked the MacBook Air speaker even better than the Pro, and I like the addition of the physical function keys. And compared to other Windows laptops, it's far superior in every way: keyboard, trackpad, price, performance, build quality. And the only thing that I think is lacking is the bezels, but it's not that big of a deal. Also, the performance of, as I said, has a ratio with the price that is completely not found in other products. This is because Apple can manufacture a lot of the M1 chip, making it cheaper to manufacture, and therefore they can lower the price to only $9.99 USD or $12.99 Canadian. And basically, you shouldn't buy the MacBook Pro. No one actually should buy the MacBook Pro now, since the only two major things that the MacBook Pro has over the MacBook Air is, first of which is battery life, which isn't really a deciding factor, since the MacBook Air already has a very nice, long-lasting battery life, and anything over the MacBook Air's battery life, to me, is considered unnecessary, since I'll always find, a time where I can plug it in, either during my sleep or during when I don't need to use it. So basically, those extra hours don't really mean anything to me. And the second thing is better performance. But as I said before, you can get some of those thermal pads to make the MacBook Air even faster than the Pro. So that's nice. And minor things that the MacBook Pro has over the MacBook Air include battery life, a fan, studio quality microphones, a touch bar, which I actually hate, a larger trackpad, and kind of bassier, if you will, speakers. But those are all minor things because the highs are actually better than them on the MacBook Pro Air, and other things are kind of minor. So another question that a lot of people are asking about is, should you wait for the M2 MacBook Air or M1X MacBook Pros? In my opinion, no, you shouldn't. This is because I think that for 99% of the people out there, the MacBook Air will be overkill for a lot of people, since it's already super fast. It can handle anything you throw at it. And I'm expecting for the higher or M2 MacBook Air to be at a higher price tag, so the M1 MacBook Air will still be in Apple's lineup. So over the last 9 months, my recommendations have changed. Now I recommend the MacBook Air with either 512 gigabytes of storage or 16 gigabytes of RAM, because if you have the base model, which I previously recommended, with 8 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage, anything over 200 gigabytes of storage, and if your RAM is full, will cause your machine to slow down. And basically, you wouldn't want that. So this is my long-term review of the M2 MacBook Air. Make sure you subscribe, press that like button, and again, this is the best value laptop and personal computer ever made, if counting everything, including the software, hardware, trackpad, which is part of the hardware, performance, and price. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.